Thank you all for having me here today. Welcome to my journey. This here is my goat, Billy. This is him overlooking Steamboat Springs. We had quite a camping trip. I had him and 8 free-range chickens who we took out into the mountain range there and avoided foxes and weasels and bears. I had chicken eggs every day, and fortunately no goat milk from this kind of a goat, but his brother was rather tasty. So starting my journey, I was a Cub Scout Arrow of Light Award winner. I also have my Medal of Heritage on today, which was given to us by World War II veterans for hosting a flag burning ceremony for their fallen comrades. And my mentor was my papa. He was married into our family. However, he was the biggest impact in my life, and he taught me things from astrology to how to be a gentleman at the age of 6 years old, and definitely put me on the right course in life. And when I was 6 years old, I was taught in school that hunger was the world's greatest issue. And for some reason, it always stuck in my mind that that was an issue I needed to help solve. And my mother, who was also another hero figure of mine, didn't quite take kindly to most of my high ambitions, for we were a very modest family. We were barely middle class, and she was a single parent. She had 3 children, and she worked 2 jobs to raise all of us, and put us through school, tried to get us to college, and I made it through a semester. This is our family here. My sisters were twins, as you can tell, so I was immediately always the one in trouble. Anything that happened, the other twin had the first twin's back, and so anything that went missing from the pantry was my fault. My mother's also a twin, and my mother's twin has now had twins, so I need to be careful. And going into my high school years, I was quite active in our community. I volunteered for over 8 clubs in maybe a matter of 3 years. My favorite of which was JROTC, which was actually a class. It replaced an entire course. I was in JROTC for 3 years, and I was eventually entitled the privilege to be the battalion supply sergeant. And I was basically just giving out medals to kids who earned them, if we could find them in our supply closet. I was also elected to be the branch manager of our credit union at our school, and I founded 2 clubs at our school, one of which was a gay-straight alliance. This was back before gay marriage was a thing, and it was a heavy issue at the time. And we also founded the paintball club, which had over a third to a fourth of the student body sign up for it on the first day. Most of my teachers were excited that their students were out of class because they didn't have anyone to teach, but they were also very upset that I was more popular than they were that day. And I was also involved with FBLA, which is our Future Business Leaders of America chapter at our school. And we entered a regional competition to make a video for texting, or for not texting while driving. And we placed 3rd. And this video was quite emotional, and it was aired in our school by our principal. And almost every female in the school was crying at the end of the video. So it's very emotional, and it's very touching. And if you want to see that, that's on YouTube or on my Facebook profile. And here's one of my twin sisters next to a sunflower I planted. I started to get into gardening, living in the suburban community that you see in the background there, so I was quite the oddball. There's nothing in any of these houses. And even my sister's confused.
Where was that?
This is in Riverview, Florida. This is in the suburb I grew up in for maybe 12 years.
Where is Riverview?
That's a small district outside of Tampa, Florida. We used to be urban, or rural, I mean, but now it went from a 2-lane dirt road to a 6-lane highway with a median, so we're not even able to enter our neighborhood anymore. We have to drive up 1.5 miles, U-turn, and then come in. So some of the challenges I've been faced with in life. My first and most challenging endeavor was overcoming a fungal infection that our doctors found at the age of roughly 13 in my sinus cavities in my head. The fungal infection had started to erode the bone. It began to remove my eyesight, which is why I have glasses on now. It's also affected my hearing, which may be why I yell at you sometimes, and a little bit of my sense of smell, which kind of lingers into taste as well. The sinuses were completely overwhelmed when they did a CAT scan of my head. The doctors looked at it and said, "We don't know where the bones are." The whole CAT scan was just one big gray light bulb. And they actually gave me twice the legal dose of radiation for an adult before my first surgery, because they had no idea what they were getting into and where they needed to carve out and what they were carving out. But 14 surgeries later, in a 6-year period, I finally overcame the fungal infection and was able to re-enter school again as a normal child, which took me out of childhood for maybe 9 to 15 years of age. Moving on from that endeavor, I've also encountered various assaults, robberies, vandalisms. I've even personally been kidnapped and someone tried to ransom me before. I've defended myself in court as well, which is kind of a weird transition from kidnapping. But I defended myself in court for not having a driver's license, car insurance, title registration, or any of those natures. And was able to successfully prove that it was a right. And at the end of the whole endeavor, they said, as long as you buy a driver's license, we'll just let you go. And don't tell anybody. Let's see, I've also faced starvation several times. At one point when I was going through the court system, I actually wasn't allowed to drive. And if I was caught driving, I would just lose the whole entire battle. So I had to not only find employment, but I also had to make it to town to study defending myself in court, seeing as I'm not a lawyer and don't know any legal lingo. And during that time, I was eating out of the woods. And this is when I actually ate my goat out of need for protein. I salvaged mushrooms, berries. Thankfully, I didn't find any of the bad ones. Otherwise, I might not be here right now. But yeah, I went down from 150 pounds to 120 pounds. And had to defend the whole court case, basically, in a state of malnutrition. Also during these times, I found myself homeless multiple times. I've lived out of hammocks, tents. I've built a lean-to in the middle of the winter before because my tent caved in from the snow load. And I've even, in Florida, found myself once in a culvert pipe, which was massive and not the most luxurious of settlements, for sure. However, during each of these times I found myself in a state of homelessness. I've always maintained a job or two, and at one point I even had a sports car, which didn't quite fit the homeless persona, but nonetheless I made it happen.
Hard to sleep in.
Yeah, very hard to sleep in. You have 2 inches of space. This is when you're driving, and this is when you're sleeping. Here's one of my hammock setups. This isn't one of the more luxurious ones. This is definitely a small day pack that I did. I followed animal trails into the thick of the swamps in Florida. And when I left this camping trip, I had so many mosquito bites that people said to me, "You're not allowed to be in public with chicken pox." some of my hobbies. During all of these endeavors, I found solace in helping plants and eventually animals. I discovered my dog Buddy when I was 15 years old. He was a stray, and he's still with me today. He's completely white in the face now. Now he's brown there. And this is a horse that was a rescue. Actually, his mother was a rescue. We didn't know she was pregnant, and one day there was a baby in the stall. And she was that malnourished, we couldn't tell that she actually had a baby in her. She was so skinny. And this is a picture of me actually sleeping with the baby horse. I fostered him and raised him out of a 3-bedroom tent. Everyone called this a tent mansion because you could walk through it and there was a horse in one of the rooms. Oh yes, and for horsemanship, I took on an apprenticeship actually when I was homeless, working for a carriage company in Louisiana, and I worked for the knowledge and experience of handling these horses that were tied to carriages, multi-million-dollar carriages and horses, and very life-threatening situations. If one strap is off of one of these carriages, it could kill all of the horses, everyone on the carriage, everyone around you. It's a very intense thing. However, I worked in kind for a bowl of rice and catfish, which was delicious, by the way. Catfish in Louisiana is way better than what we have in Florida. And after 6 years of that apprenticeship, actually, under my horsemanship teacher, I finally now work for a very well-established luxury horse care barn where we have 5 retired show horses, and I simply clean up after them and give them their medicines, which is a big difference from holding 2 horses tied to a 2,000-pound carriage for a piece of catfish. And this is the day that I entered Colorado. So from the culvert I found myself in the woods in Florida, I decided that I also had a husky at the time, as you see here, who was also a rescue. I decided that Florida was way too hot for him. We had just gone through the first winter with him, and I dug my koi pond at the time into the ground so he could cool himself off. Needless to say, he ate every single fish out of the pond. And this was at Christmas time. That was his Christmas gift. He was so hot I had to refill this koi pond every day. And the summer was just starting, and I looked at him, I looked at myself. I said, why am I going to start over from this culvert? Let's go to Colorado, and I hear the people are great there, the area is great, and thankfully they were right, because I'm happy to be here. And this is a picture of me getting involved in Challenge. Once I entered Colorado, I decided to just throw myself into everything that could possibly kill me. So I hiked 14,000-foot mountains. I've gotten lost in the woods, hours away from people, and found myself almost sleeping under a tree one day in the middle of a rainstorm outside of Steamboat. And thankfully, a hunter actually turned on his generator for the first time in 3 months. And I was able to follow the sound of the generator through the rainstorm to his camp. And thankfully didn't sleep there to become mountain lion food. My dog even left me. He found the way and didn't tell me how to get back. I've also rock climbed. This is one of my favorite climbs because I have the tree for additional support. And it just makes things more fun. I like the rock climb with no security, no gear. Maybe a landing pad at the bottom in case the rock comes off the wall, which actually happened to me once. I was doing a rock climb about this tall, which is only maybe 50 feet at most, and I was near the top, and the whole entire lip I'm holding comes off, and I fall 50 feet holding this to my chest, thinking if there's an inch between this thing and me, that's not going to be good. It's going to give it momentum to collapse my chest, essentially. And thankfully I land on a flat piece of ground where there were no rocks or tree roots, completely covered by tree roots and rocks all around me. That one spot had none. And I'm just holding this rock, just thanking everything that exists, that I'm okay at that point. And so now that leads me to my charity that I started. My charity actually stems from my passions and endeavors I faced in life. Everything that I've endured, I never want to have to see another person go through again. And so I've started Pompeian Charities International, and we target ending homelessness and hunger. And we want to do that by combining the two actually into one umbrella. We found a system that we are trying to implement in Uganda at the moment, where we're going to build up orphanages to have a source of income to supply themselves with money, food security for the kids. And as you see here, we actually have put 2 goats in Uganda just a week or 2 ago. And the children absolutely love the goats. These are all orphan children. All of their parents have either passed away. Most of them make it to school by hiking miles through the ghettos of Africa. And they now get to come to school and have a goat friend to play with. And these 2 goats that we brought to them are a breeding pair. We hope that they will breed and reproduce, and their babies can be sold for food. Their babies can be sold for reproduction purposes. There's also breeds of goats that produce milk and hair, and the hair can double as clothing for the locals. And let's see. Now this is Shanai. I'm totally butchering her name, of course. But she is our director in Uganda. She is heading this orphanage here. She takes care of 250 kids daily, and she's also a gospel singer. She is our connection in Uganda, who we're giving the money to, and it's through her that we organize all of our efforts. And I believe this is possibly the child that she's actually adopted, who was an orphan, whose parents had been killed in a tragedy in Africa. So she, not only does she run the orphanage, but she also adopts in children too. And we're starting many projects up. This is our testing ground for how efficient we can build this system. If we can do it in Uganda, we're going to multiply this project hopefully all around the world to target homelessness and hunger everywhere. And some of the things that we're working on, our main project is Goats for Uganda. And this provides food security, education with the animals, and all sorts of products, which doubles as education as well. The storing and producing of cheeses from milk will be a great skill for the children to learn. And we also need to build a dormitory actually for the children at this site. These children come to the school every day, and then they go off, and some of them have homes, and some of them just have safe corners that they find. And so we're actually planning with some engineers there at the moment to build some dormitories where you plan to put 6 dormitories in, each one costing maybe $10,000 to $20,000, depending on the circumstances and how luxurious we are able to make them for the kids. And our second project after the dormitory is going to be the medical facility. Tons and tons of these kids come into school every day with fungal infections, skin infections, bacterial infections. Some of them are attacked by stray dogs, feral people. And unfortunately, some of these kids don't survive the walk to school. And so these dormitories will help provide them a safe shelter and an epicenter for them to start their lives, hopefully in a way that breeds prosperity. And some of our ambitious projects that we like to go into are food forests and animal refugees. So we want to eventually have, this is our 20-30 year goal. We want to have enough acreage on some of these properties that we're able to build perennial food forest gardens that will be able to produce food for the locals without them actually having to service the garden. Instead of monoculture, which is what we're used to, we have to go in, fertilize, pesticide, and replant our crops every year, and they're annual crops. However, perennial crops, they reproduce themselves, and through using permaculture, we can actually get these plants to work hand in hand together as people do. And they actually create their own biome where they can grow and sustain themselves, and people can just come through at that point and eat without having to work. And the animal refuges is going to be much further down the road. We would hope to have enough land available that we're able to bring the animals towards the orphanages, have them sheltered there, and allow them to reproduce to the point that eventually they'll actually become to the point that they're able to be hunted. And that's a project in the works, of course. However, our main project right now is the Child's Dormitory. And thank you all for following along in this journey for me. If you all are interested, before the Q&A, I actually have a small 4 to 5 minute video from the director in Uganda for you. If you all have time, I'd like to show it to you. Is that a yes?
Yes, sure.
Everyone, I'm Olive Shani Mukiti, the director and founder of Precious Women and Children Ministries Uganda. Under that ministry, we have Children Shalom Academy, where we help the orphans and needy children in this community. We are located in Kachonga Village, Butaleja District, Mbali Road. We are very grateful that the Lord has used us to help over 250 children in this village. They come to school, we take care of them, we feed them, and we send them back home. But we have had some challenges where children face difficulties on their way back home, where some of these children, we had an incident of a kid called Shakira. On her way back, she was poisoned, and we lost her. It was so sad. And then we also have instances where these children fall down and break their legs because of long distances and kidnapped on the way. So we are believing and trusting God to put up dormitories, this is where the children stay after school. They don't have to move long distances so that you can have full control. And then also to have a medical center. There is a lot of land around that is empty, and we are trusting God to buy it so that we can have the medical center here, and that will help us not to lose any of our children when they fall sick, especially malaria, because it's very common here in Uganda. When kids get it, they die from it, seriously. So we are trusting God and believing Him to do that. And then we thank God also that we help the women to learn skills, they are able now to make dresses, different things. So we thank everyone who has stood with the women, who has been contributed, and we have more dreams and plans to build a bigger women's center to help many and the youth so that they can have skills to do different things, laying out good bricks, making tables and different things, a lot. We have a lot, but we have less funds. So I'm here today to welcome you to join us, to partner with us. You can sponsor a kid, you can sponsor a teacher, because it's one of the burdens to pay the teachers. You can help us to put up a building in any way that the Lord has laid you. You're very welcome. You can come and partner with us. We shall be very grateful, and we believe that the Lord is going to bless you. You will not stay the same. Thank you to everyone that supports my music ministry by buying my music, and my customers at the shop. because that helps me to sustain the ministry and other projects to run the school. And then thank you everyone that has stood with us, the precious women and the children Shalom. Thank you for standing with us and supporting us from the time we met you and from the time the Lord put the burden on your heart. Thank you so much, and I want to request everyone, please follow us on our Facebook page, Children Shalom Academy, and our website. May God bless you. Be blessed.
Alrighty, that's our message from Olive in Uganda. And at this point, if anyone has any questions, I'd love to answer them.
How close is it to the capital of Kampala, and what direction from that capital is the...
So the question is, how close to the capital of Kampala are we? And what direction from there? We are maybe... Don't quote me on this, but I think 3 to 4 hours east of Kampala. And I have to double check my latitude and longitude on that, however, that's where I believe we're located.
Jacob, with homelessness being such an increasing problem in this country, I'm just kind of curious as to your personal story. What threw you into homelessness in the first place? What triggered it? And how long were you homeless, and then how did you pull yourself out?
Great question. He asked how did I end up being homeless, and how did I end up overcoming it and pulling out of it? And was there a third part to that?
That was basically it. What was the cause? What kind of kept you there, and then how did you emerge?
So the cause of how I initially became homeless was actually one of the assaults on me. My stepfather at the time and I had a disagreement where he tried to end my life through strangulation. So I actually felt the home was no safe anymore, of course, after he didn't finish the job.
How old were you at that point?
I was 18, and I ran away from home actually then and moved into the woods behind the neighborhood I grew up and built a, I want to say, 10 by 7 shack, 2 foot off the ground with a little tarp roof just to stay off the ground because the rains in Florida are quite nasty. And I continued working at the moving company I was with at the time, so I would move furniture for people. And I had to clean myself up in a gas station because no one was going to let me move furniture after crawling out of the woods. And what kept me there would be ignorance. I didn't know how to utilize my time effectively, and I spent it with the wrong people in the wrong places, and I spent most of my money actually building my shacks that I lived out of, which could have gone to something much more useful. Some people called my shacks I built little penthouses in the woods, so I would have generators sometimes, the computer maybe, and it was a computer on a log, so it wasn't very glamorous. Next question.
Just a follow-up question on the orphanage. Have you had any conversation with one of our members, Siggy Palmer? Because
I don't believe so.
She has a daughter and son-in-law that have an orphanage close to Kampala, and I gathered from what you showed on the video that it's sort of a Christian organization. She mentioned God many times.
Yeah, she's a gospel singer.
And so is theirs. There might be a possibility of some networking there.
Absolutely. I thank you for that information. We'll have to meet up afterwards.
The bad news is she left yesterday and won't be back in 2.5 months.
Of course. Well, when she gets back, I'll definitely meet
She's
up.
on her way to Uganda right now.
Oh, wow. Wow. Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
We're at time.
We're at time. All right. Well, thank you all for having me today.